Deandre Hopkins decided to speak up. And when a name that big starts talking about the future, it's never just noise, with rumors flying, questions everywhere, and nonstop speculation about what's coming next. He didn't dodge anything. He was direct. And what he said completely changes how we should look at this season and the next chapter of his NFL career. Now, the question isn't just whether Hopkins can still play. It's how far he wants to go and what that means for the Ravens moving forward. His words have an immediate impact, open the door to new possibilities, and leave a level of suspense that's impossible to ignore. Because the answer isn't as simple as it sounds, and the most important detail only clicks if you stay all the way to the end. When DeAndre Hopkins arrived in Baltimore on a one-year deal, that alone set the tone. This wasn't a long-term commitment or a move built around the distant future. It was a right-now decision, almost like a high-level test run, where every week matters and every snap counts in how the team evaluates him. At the same time the Ravens brought Hopkins in to add weight to the passing game, the rumors started almost immediately. Talk of getting younger, refreshing the receiver room, and planning ahead began to circulate. Even so, the message from the front office has gone in a different direction, emphasizing that the plan is to get Hopkins more involved and fully tap into his experience. That contrast creates a very real sense of instability. On one side, there's public confidence in what Hopkins can still bring to the field. On the other, there's this constant feeling that the clock is ticking, like his spot on the roster has to be re-earned every single game, every route run, every big moment. And it's right in the middle of that environment, full of outside doubt and internal expectations, that Hopkins takes on a very clear stance. Instead of sounding like someone nearing the end, he presents himself as someone who still has plenty to prove and even more to give, making it clear that for him, this story is far from over. When DeAndre Hopkins talks, he doesn't sound like a player saying goodbye to the game. Not even close. Appearing on the Lounge podcast ahead of a massive matchup against the Steelers, his tone was confident, firm, and even a little defiant, like someone who wants everyone to know he's still here to compete. He says it plainly. He wants to play at least one more season. And this isn't about nostalgia or holding on emotionally. Hopkins says it because he genuinely believes he can still do what's always defined his game, win one-on-one matchups, create separation, and be a real problem for top defenders across the league. That confidence doesn't come out of thin air. He points to specific moments, recent ones, reminding everyone that right at the start of the season he showed he can still decide games, beating a high-level corner and turning his first opportunity into a touchdown. To him, that's not an exception, it's proof. That kind of statement completely changes how his current moment should be viewed. Instead of a veteran just trying to hang on, Hopkins positions himself as someone who still believes in his impact. And when that belief is said out loud, it naturally leads to a quiet question in the background. If he feels this way, what do the numbers actually say about his season? If you only look at Hopkins' stat line this year, it's easy to be misled. The catches are down. The yardage is far below what he's known for. And on paper, it looks like confirmation of the decline narrative a lot of people want to push. But football isn't played on spreadsheets. When you watch the tape more closely, what shows up as a player who still understands the speed of the NFL, knows how to adjust his routes, draws defensive attention, and creates space that doesn't always turn into targets, but still helps the offense function. Hopkins isn't in the role of seeing 10 targets a game anymore, and that's part of the Ravens' offensive context. Even so, his presence changes how defenses line up, how safeties position themselves, and how the quarterback reads the field before the snap. That gap between what the box score shows and what the field reveals helps explain why Hopkins doesn't feel close to the end. He knows production isn't just numbers, and that understanding opens the door to something bigger, something that goes beyond 2024 and starts looking toward what's next.
All right, we're already past the halfway point of this video, but before we continue, I noticed you haven't left a like yet. It's really important because it helps YouTube keep showing you my content so I can keep bringing you the best news about the Baltimore Ravens. So go ahead and hit that like button. It's free and it really helps. Thanks. Now let's get back to it.
At 33 years old and heading into his 13th NFL season, Hopkins has seen just about everything the league can throw at a player. He's changed teams, played in different systems, and learned how to adapt to completely different situations throughout his career. Even so, he doesn't sound worn down. If anything, the way he talks about this phase gives the impression that there's still plenty left in the tank, not just physically, but mentally. He feels ready, confident, and fully aware of what he can still deliver on the field. That maturity shows up not only in his play, but in how he views his current role. Hopkins understands he might not be the centerpiece of the offense anymore, but he also knows he can be decisive when the game tightens, when defenses clamp down, and when there's no room for mistakes. And when a player with that resume still believes he can make a difference, the focus naturally shifts. It's no longer about proving he belongs in the league. It's about how far this final phase can go, especially when there's still something missing from his career. Hopkins has already made it clear that he intends to keep playing in 2026. Where that happens is still unknown, but the desire to compete at the highest level isn't up for debate. He's not talking about closing chapters. He's talking about moving forward, with the future still wide open. The present carries even more weight. This run with the Ravens has a very specific goal, and it has nothing to do with individual stats or personal recognition. It's about something that defines legacies in the NFL. For Hopkins, ending this chapter with a deep playoff run and a real shot at the Super Bowl would completely reshape the narrative. It wouldn't just be about longevity. It would be about impact, relevance, and closing out a career built on excellence. And that's why all these comments, numbers, rumors, and conversations connect. This isn't about whether Hopkins can still play. It's about how far this final pursuit can take him, alongside a team that's also racing against time. Deandre Hopkins made one thing clear. This story isn't over. Even with lower numbers, a short-term contract, and constant speculation, his motivation is still high, his confidence is intact, and his mindset is fully locked in on competing. This isn't empty talk from a veteran at the end. It's someone who knows exactly what he can still give and sees this moment as another important chapter, not a farewell. Now, the situation gets even more interesting. If Hopkins truly still has gas left in the tank, the question stops being if and becomes where and in what role. The Ravens have to decide how much they're willing to invest in that experience, while Hopkins makes it clear he wants one more meaningful run, ideally chasing what's still missing from his resume. And that's where your opinion matters. Do you think DeAndre Hopkins still has what it takes to be a difference maker in the NFL, or is this more confidence in reality? Should he stay in Baltimore or look for another team in 2026? Drop your take in the comments, because this conversation is far from over, and Hopkins' future could be a lot more interesting than most people expect.
And if you, just like me, are passionate about the world of football and want to learn more about the Ravens' legacy, don't leave this video without sharing it with that friend who is also a Baltimore Ravens fan and will love this content. See those video suggestions on your screen? The first one was handpicked just for you, and the other is a recommendation from YouTube itself.